Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 2025 Council Agenda Briefing. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past and present. I would like to advise everyone that the audio and video of this meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. I request everyone to please turn off your mobile phones. I remind you that audio recording of the meeting proceedings and photography within the chamber is prohibited unless prior approval has been granted, and councillors and city officers are reminded to disclose any declarations of financial interests and interests affecting impartiality, and are requested to activate their microphones when addressing the meeting. So, with that, we turn to item 1, which is the declaration of opening. Welcome everyone. I declare the meeting open at 1 minute past 6 p.m. Items for Council. Agenda items 2, 3, 6, 7, 8.1, 8.2, 9, 11, 13 and 14 will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting to be held on 26, it says August here, but that can't be right, on the 23rd of September 2025. Item 4 is attendance. Item 4.1 is apologies. There's no apologies for this evening, or at least I haven't received any. And item 4.2 is approved leave of absence. I'm on an approved leave of absence for the period of 24 July 2025 to October 2025. But I'm here tonight and we'll probably be here next Tuesday. Item 5, declarations of interest. Councillors, does anyone have any declarations of interest that they wish to make this evening? That's a no, okay. Item 8, presentations. Item 8.3 is deputations. And this evening we have one speaker who will have up to 10 minutes to address council. I'd like to invite Mr. Joe Algieri of South Perth, who is speaking for the officer recommendation at item 10.3.1. Welcome, Mr. Algieri. Our microphone is yours and we look forward to your deputation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, elected members, staff and members of the gallery. Always a pleasure to appear before you, and tonight I do so on behalf of applicants for the proposed dwelling at number 7 Salter Point Parade in Salter Point, as per your agenda. I'm not going to be 10 minutes, in fact I'm going to be a lot less, and I'm only going to canvass 2 points. And first is central to your original decision, and that is the impact on views of significance. I took this matter on for the applicants because I am familiar with your planning framework. I'm also familiar with a lot of the established precedent and case law from the State Administrative Tribunal when it comes to matters for views. And more importantly, I took it on because once I had done my own assessment, I quickly came to the conclusion that there was not any undue impact, notwithstanding the concerns raised in the original submissions. And perhaps this is one instance where some further advertising probably could have been beneficial, because since the time of lodgement, we are now up to the 5th revision to the plans. So they've come a long way from where we started. So through the mediation process, we resolved what I believe is the most important consideration in your planning framework, and that is we now have full compliance with the projection envelope under your local planning policy 5.1, which, rather than just a generic measurement as it is under the schedule of the scheme, the projection envelope very fairly and reasonably says that people on a sloping block can adjust to height in various blocks. In addition to that, through mediation, we shaved off a whole metre off the upper floor so that the limited view corridors there have been opened up a little bit more. But in reality, this development is not having any impact on views of the river. The impact is immediately, even on that foreshore area where you've got that little lagoon, it doesn't even reach that far, and our diagrams indicate as much. So we're not taking anyone's river views away and beyond. The existing dwelling on site does exactly that. So pleased with our discussions with your staff and your appointed consultant. We thought that was the end of the matter, and that brings me to my second point, which is your new tree policy, LPP 3.2. Now, obviously amongst us planners, that's been a hot discussion point ever since the recent tribunal decision that no doubt you're aware of. Upon hearing the news, the very first thing that I did was go back to site myself, because to be honest, when we had the on-site mediation, I didn't even give it a second look. And what did I see? A magnificent beast of a eucalyptus, probably 25 metres in height. And I thought, who in their right mind is going to build anything under that tree if it is to be retained? I draw your attention to page 42 of the attachments. Now, this is tree number 8. So that's the attachments to this item. So it's page 42 of 100. That photo is one that I provided to your staff based on my site visit. Now, I'm looking in a northerly direction, and you can see that tree in a V shape, and if you look closely, you can see where it's been lopped near the base, just above that gazebo, and I've picked out at least 2 points thereafter. And why has it been lopped on that side? Because it's very close to 2 neighbours, one at 8A Salter Point and another one at the back at 84 Riverway. 84 Riverway is sort of a middle block with an L-shaped middle block. So over the years, obviously those neighbours have lopped that tree, as you can do once it gets over the branches or the canopy get over the common boundary. So you've still got a tree there, but it's so lopsided. And where's it leaning over? The tennis court, exactly where the proposed dwelling is. So I'm here to put to you, frankly and sincerely, there's no redesign of any dwelling that's going to potentially save that tree. I'm not an arborist, but I'm pretty certain they'll tell you probably that it's in reasonably good nick, but given its height now, they use the word widowmaker for a reason. So I hope you don't make us, after all this effort to get to this point, that you don't now put us through a process where we do have to follow the strict policy requirements, and we've got to provide you with a report. I remind you that in the tail end of your policy, it does give discretion where it says, in the opinion of the city, the redesign of any proposed development to accommodate the tree is unfeasible. So I hope you can quickly draw your own conclusion on that, in the hope that we don't have to do anything further in this particular instance. My last point this evening is that putting the two issues together, retention of the tree and impacts on access of views of significance, the tree's taking away more views than anything else. I went up to Riverway at the back. It actually affects, at number 71 on the other side, once they lose that tree, they're actually going to get a good chunk of their views back. And I sort of chuckled to myself thinking, well, this is an interesting one. I fully support your tree policy, and I can understand that the mood in the state is ready for one, but it's still going to be a tough road for you in decisions that involve the retention of trees. This is one instance where I would think carefully if you're of the mind to give this one a red hot go and let's put our policy to the test. Please, this is not the one. So without further ado, I can advise you that the recommended conditions are now acceptable. Getting back to the views, for those of you that aren't happy about the fact that an applicant goes to the tribunal mediation, then you feel as though you're giving in or we're caving in, please take the opposite view. The fact that the applicants have taken or have made 5 revisions as a result of the assessment by your staff and as a result of your earlier decision to refuse this, the fact that we had to go back and make even more changes, please feel positive about the fact that the system is working. You're holding applicants to a very high standard, and they're not going to get there in these sorts of areas. They're not going to get their approval the first go, the second go, or even the third go. This is testament to the fact that they've made now 5 revisions. So on that basis, I wish you well with your consideration, and I hope there's a positive outcome for my clients in this matter. Happy to take any questions if any of you have any. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation, Mr Algieri. Councillors, any questions for Mr Algieri on this matter? Councillor Brenda Abrandis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Mr Algieri, for your deputation. I've got a couple of questions, and they're with respect to the current proposal, but also the original proposal. So just with regard to this insignificant height adjustment of 10.5 centimetres, what sort of impact do you think that that would have had on the views, if any at all?
None whatsoever. But for those, and I can imagine you've got ratepayers or communities that say, you've got these policies, can't we hold applicants to the account? At least you can now say it complies with the projection envelope under your policy. But I'll reiterate what I said earlier. Once I had a look at this, and I'm used to looking at these types of applications, is that 10.5 centimetres going to make a difference? No. But I tell you what did make a difference through the process, when we took a whole metre off the side for the upper floor bedroom.
Thank you, Mr Algieri. And just following on from that, so from your experience, with regard to the application as it was submitted in April this year, with the 10.5 centimetre marginal variance, would it have been appropriate to reject that development for such an immaterial, insignificant variance?
If your question is, do I think that was, to use a tribunal phrase, the correct and preferable decision at the time, I would say no, it should have been approved. But equally, you have, I guess, my empathy with these types of applications in this location, which is one of the areas you seek to protect. I'm not surprised that you've taken a very cautious approach to this. Getting back to my comment earlier, when there are multiple revisions, it's sometimes helpful to have re-advertising or sometimes multiple points of re-advertising, but maybe that's not a good idea either, because it generally means the community or the neighbours need to engage professional assistance if they properly to understand it. So this is one of those cases that we're at a different place compared to where we started in terms of mainly the lowering of the... so again, without repeating myself, your system is working in that you're holding applicants to a very high bar here.
Thank you, Mr Algieri. And a final question. It's with regard to Clause 67 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And that talks to the proposal being consistent with orderly and proper planning. The building height is compatible with the desirable characteristics in the settings, and the development of the land and in the locality in relation to the effect of height, and also the proposal is consistent with the amenity of the locality. With regard to the original application that was submitted in April, did you see anything inconsistent that would cause any concern for Clause 67?
The lodged application?
Yes, as was previously put to Council for consideration.
Well, you're putting me on the spot as to whether, if it was my decision, whether that should be approved. I must say, otherwise I wouldn't have taken the job on, the application was sensitively designed to begin with. They did obviously look at your framework closely. In my view, given the locality, this is a fairly modestly scaled proposal, and it is sensitively designed. Whether the original application should have been approved or not, I don't know, but they certainly made it better from compliance, or I won't say compliance, from a due regard point of view with all those matters that you've raised from 67.2 of the regulations. I think this is a good outcome.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mr Algieri. And sorry, one final question which you've just brought to my attention. So the development application that was brought to us in April was actually already substantially modified by the applicant to obviously appease the administration and also the neighbours. Are you familiar with what was undertaken to actually present I suppose, a better application for approval back in April?
I certainly, when I took the job on, I certainly read the original decision, the minutes, and I got quite a detailed briefing from my client about all the changes. So the answer is yes, but I can't recite exactly what happened and when at this very moment.
Thank you, Mr Algieri.
Any further questions for Mr Algieri, folks? Councillor D'Souza.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Mr Algieri, for your presentation and for your productive engagement through the mediation and the like. You mentioned the consultation process, and potentially if we had a more robust process, it might have avoided the need for us to have this taken to mediation. Do you have any proposals on how the city could potentially front-end the process to avoid something having to go to mediation like this in the future?
I'm afraid I don't. I'm a consultant. Tonight I'm appearing for the applicants, but past occasions I've represented you and many other local governments. This is a really difficult one, and it really depends on the nature of the application. I've cautioned other local governments not to continually re-advertise applications because as a matter of transparency, it might seem the proper thing to do, but all they're doing is agitating already aggrieved neighbours, some of which may never like a proposal. It's human nature that you fear the worst. So I've got no wise words to offer you tonight, but there needs to be a lot of consideration and a lot of discretion. I would maybe suggest that a blanket policy position may not be appropriate. It's every case on its merits, to use an old cliche. So perhaps this is where some advice from your staff on a case-by-case basis might be appropriate. So sorry I've given you a non-answer, but I believe that. I'd caution a sort of blanket policy position on these types of situations.
Thank you, Mr Algieri. Councillors, any further questions for Mr Algieri? No. Thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you and good evening.
Okay, that brings us to item 10, which is the draft August reports. So I'll hand you over to the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Mr Matthew Scott, to take you through the balance of the draft September reports.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 10.3.1, proposed group dwelling, lot 4, number 7, Salter Point Parade, Salter Point, section 31, reconsideration. The purpose of this report is for council to reconsider its previous decision to refuse a development application for a proposed group dwelling on lot 4, number 7, Salter Point Parade, Salter Point, under section 31 of the State Administration Tribunal Act 2004, in brackets WA.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Councillors, any questions for the staff on this item? I think Councillor Navard was first there.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a few questions here, but if you allow me to ask one or two, I could wait beyond that. My first question relates to a reference about all vehicle crossings being upgraded, designed and constructed to the satisfaction of the City of South Perth, and that landscaping areas shall be installed in accordance with the approved plans and maintained for the lifetime of the development to the satisfaction of the City of South Perth. While there are no present street trees at number 7, I do recognise that you described the Xanthorrhoea and the Banksias as trees. I was just wondering if there might be any capacity for the city to provide additional vegetation, given that the verge appears to be a steep slope, and I was only thinking in terms of stability of the slope. That was all.
Ms Mullen, can I say... Oh. Ms Zampremo. Ms Zampremo, my apologies.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. the city doesn't ordinarily plant or maintain verge areas adjacent to residential dwellings, as the maintenance of these areas is the responsibility of the adjoining landowner. The city plants and maintains trees within the verge only, but the city does have verge guidelines for residents to look at the types of treatments that may be suitable for putting on the verge.
Thank you, Ms Ampremo. Just second question there, Councillor Navard.
Oh, yes, I had a further one about the top of the roof height being reduced, but I do understand from Mr Algieri's talk that my concern was whether it was now adhering to the required envelope, which I'm taking his declaration as being correct. There was another one to do with the upper floor master bedroom width that had been reduced by 1 metre to the side, but at the same time I was just wondering which items in the previous rejection note was it addressing? I think maybe that has been dealt with, but is there any explanation that we can have for that?
Mr Quigley.
Thank you for your question. The modification does not directly address any of the 4 reasons for refusal. However, as the increased setback is considered to reduce the impact of the building overall, including widening of view corridors between properties, it could be considered to indirectly address refusal reasons 2 and 4.
Another one was in relation to the increased size of the window in the first floor, because there have been concerns from nearby residents that the window in its previous version was impacting privacy, and now that window was of a larger size. So I was just wanting to find out about that, please.
Mr Quigley.
The larger windows may result in a greater perceived loss of privacy for the properties which they face. However, the windows were already relatively large, and the changes do not result in new views to areas which were previously not visible. So in this respect, the additional impact on privacy is considered to be perceptual rather than a true impact. In addition, the windows remain compliant with the deemed to comply visual privacy setback requirements, and accordingly the city cannot refuse an application on that basis.
My final question was to do with the sight lines, because I noticed that the little figures, we've got one angle for the ground floor and then a different angle for the first floor, and I wondered why the sight lines were not calculated in the same way as each other.
Mr Quigley.
The sections provided show the viewing angles from the ground and upper floors of the rear adjoining property as they intersect with the highest obstruction across both the existing and proposed dwellings at the subject site. What this means is that the viewer can see all the areas above the dash line from the viewing point, and areas below the line will be obstructed. So as shown in section AA, which is page 10 of the attachments, the blue sight line from the upper floor reaches the ground floor before the Canning River, meaning that the upper floor would maintain fully unobstructed, excluding the vegetation, views to the entire rear width. The sight line from the ground floor touches the ground beyond the Canning River and therefore potentially loses views to a portion of the water surface. However, the dwelling's views to the nearest side of the river are already obstructed by vegetation, and the obstruction of the dwelling is considered likely to only obstruct views to the vegetation rather than existing views to the river. So on this basis, the impact is considered to be insignificant and reasonable.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr Quigley and Councillor Navard. Councillors, any further questions for the administration? Councillor Brenda Abrandis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With regard to the SAT outcome, did SAT mandate the 10.5 centimetre height reduction, or was this a concession that was actually volunteered and offered by the applicant?
Mr Quigley?
All the matters discussed during mediation at the SAT are confidential, so I'm unable to provide specifics. However, the orders that were issued by SAT did not mandate any specific outcome other than revised documentation to be submitted for consideration by Council.
Thank you. The insignificant height adjustment to this revised plan is only 10.5 centimetres. We heard from Mr Algieri this evening with regard to this same question, but from the administration's view, what sort of impact would this increase result in views for the adjacent neighbouring properties?
Mr Quigley?
The modifications to the building height proposed are considered likely to be indistinguishable compared to the previous design. As noted in the report, despite having a lower maximum AHD height, the revised skillion roof design results in a greater building height along the southeast side of the development, which is closest to the river. This increases the obstruction of views towards the river. However, the change is considered to be very minor, with the increase expected to only obscure views to some vegetation beyond the existing dwelling at number 7 Salter Point Parade and not the Canning River water surface.
Thank you, Mr Quigley. From an administrative perspective, how much time has been spent with regard to this revision in undertaking a revised position, administration with regard to the SAT, and also the reconsideration before us tonight?
Mr Quigley?
So there was 3 main officers involved, including the director, manager and the senior urban planner. It's estimated the time was around 28 hours.
Right, thank you, Mr. Quigley. I have a few more questions, so if any of my fellow councillors would like to ask any in between, please do.
Councillors, anyone else want to ask a question? No? The floor is yours then, Councillor Brenda Abrandis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given the SAT outcome, does the administration consider that the proposed development is consistent with the design principle 5.1.6 P6 of the residential design codes, as the building height proposed did not adversely impact the views by any significance?
Mr Quigley?
The city is of the view that the original design exceeded the projection envelope of LPP 5.1, as explained within the previous report to Council, and the revised design does not exceed the projection envelope of LPP 5.1.
Thank you, Mr Quigley. At the April 2025 Ordinary Council meeting, the height exceedance for the proposed development was stated as exceeding 1 metre or 1.3 metres when taken into consideration the LPP P5.1. Can the administration confirm the application of this LPP that it didn't exceed anything in excess of 1 metre, and that it is actually correct that it was only a 10.5 centimetre exceedance in total?
Mr Quigley?
The building height requirement under the city's local planning scheme number 7 is a separate requirement from the projection envelope of LPP 5.1. The projection envelope of LPP 5.1 is a measure to indicate whether a height variation to ASR 12 is reasonable and acceptable. It's confirmed that the original design saw an exceedance of the project envelope height of 0.105 metres. millimetres, while the revised design is contained within the projection envelope of LPP 5.1.
Thank you, Mr Quigley. Councillor Brenda Brandis.
Thank you, Mr Quigley. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Final question, and I've asked the same question of Mr Algieri, but with regard to the set outcome and what we have before us for reconsideration, does the administration consider that there was anything with regard to clause 67 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 that would make this proposal not orderly and planning, orderly and proper planning, that would make the building height incompatible with the desired character of the setting or development of the land in the locality in relation to the effect of that height, and also the proposal being inconsistent with the amenity of the locality?
Mr Quigley.
The city's of the view that the proposal satisfactorily addresses the relevant matters to be given due regard in clause 67 of the Planning and Development Regulations.
Thank you, Mr Quigley. Any further questions for the administration on this item tonight, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Scott.
Item 10.4.1, list of payments, August 2025. This report presents to Council a list of accounts paid under delegated authority between 1st of August 2025 and the 31st of August 2025. For information, it also includes purchase card transactions between 1st of July 2025 and the 31st of July 2025 in line with legislative requirements.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Next item, please, Mr Scott.
Item 10.4.2, monthly financial statements, August 2025. The monthly financial statements are provided within attachments A to I, with high-level analysis contained in the comments of this report.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Brenda Brandis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a few questions with regard to the expenditure for both the month of July and August with regard to the mini golf at Collier Park. If the administration could please advise the revenue for the month of July and August and the expenditure for the month of July and August, and also the full year budget, revenue budget for 25-26 and the expenditure budget for 25-26, please.
Ms McDonald, can I send that your way?
Yes, thank you. Through the Chair. The July 2025 monthly revenue was 18,612. The August 2025 month revenue was 15,412. The July 2025 monthly expenditure was 6,808. The August 2025 month expenditure was 6,808. The full year 25-26 revenue budget, 258,501. The full year 2025-26 expenditure budget, 80,163. And then the final 30 June 2025 full year annual revenue and expenditure revenue, 268,191 and expenditure 80,163.
Thank you, Ms McDonald.
Any further questions on this item, folks? No, and thank you, Ms McDonald. Next item, please, Mr Scott.
Item 10.4.3, Electors Special Meeting, 25th of August 2025. This report allows Council to consider the outcomes of the Electors Special Meeting held on 25th of August 2025 in accordance with sections 5.33 of the Local Government Act 1995.
Thank you, Mr Scott. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Okay. In that case, we move on to item 12, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. That's nil for this evening. Item 15 is when we would ordinarily close the meeting to the public if there was any reason for us to do so, but there's not, so we won't. And item 16 is closure. So before I close tonight's meeting, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and participation. I declare the meeting closed at 6:36 p.m. Thank you all, and good night.